Alright, back at it again with a what I watched for June 2020. Before we get started, I just want to say sorry that the editing on this one is a bit bare bones. I'm having Premiere Pro problems, so I had to get this one done in iMovie for iPhone, which sucks. But whatever. If you have any movie suggestions for July, let me know, or if you hard disagree with any of my takes in this video, let me know and I'll tell you why you're a stupid moron. So I started off this month with The Watermelon Woman by Cheryl Dunye in 1996. So interestingly enough, this is the first feature-length film to be directed by a black lesbian, which I didn't know until after watching, but that's pretty crazy. So there's a lot of historical significance to this one. It seems like movies that have that sort of historical significance coincidentally tend to be a bit bad or a bit boring. But I'm happy to say that this wasn't the case with this film, and this was an enjoyable watch, and I enjoyed my time with it. So Cheryl Dunye pretty much plays herself, I think, and she's investigating this black actress who was nicknamed the Watermelon Woman, and the kind of erasure that black women went through during the early days of cinema. And so I thought that that's not a topic or an issue that you really hear much about, even though it's clear that it would have been pretty prevalent, and film is still to this day a Eurocentric industry. So I think that that was interesting to have a glimpse into that issue, something you don't hear that much about. And I really liked the low budget indie late mid 90s feel to this one. I remember thinking a couple of the shots in this one were absolutely crazy. There's one in the library that just looked next level for such a an independent movie and a directorial debut. But I also remember thinking that some of the dialogue felt a bit clunky, and I'm willing to look past that because this was um you know Cheryl's first movie, and I think that might just be because of the 90s slang that is included. But it w- it wasn't in a way that felt lazy or unrefined. It actually was kind of endearing in a way because it made it feel more authentic with the some kind of shoddy acting. I'd say. I don't have too much to say about this one other than I really liked Cheryl as the protagonist. It was interesting to see a historically significant movie, first black lesbian movie. A lot of the costumes were awesome. Like there was a, nice nostalgic, almost 90s indie movie feel to this one, which is always, which is always fun to see. I'd recommend this one not only for the historical impact of it, but it was a pretty fun indie movie to watch. So yeah, 4 stars on this one. Next up, Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, directed by Jake Kasdan in 2007, who I accidentally called Jane Kasdan in last month's Jumanji review. So sorry about that one. But I was pleasantly surprised with this one. This is like a parody of music biopics like Walk the Line or The Doors or anything that were popular at the time and are starting to get popular now with things like Straight Outta Compton or Bohemian Rhapsody. But I was refreshing to see a parody of this genre. It's something that probably everyone has seen, but it was good to see, jokes about this genre rather than the spy genre that we've seen a million times with Austin Powers or Undercover Brother or Johnny English or Kingsman. So it was good to see a genre parody that wasn't that, which that was probably my favorite aspect. Um, a lot of these 2000s comedies are a bit too, just trying too hard to be like edgy or like a little bit offensive, and they just can't come off as kind of dumb. But aside from a few moments, I'm happy to say that that wasn't the case for this one, in my opinion. There was a few moments where it felt like I was watching a Smosh video or something stupid, but most of the jokes were really funny. They made full use of this music biopic joke, by setting it across a number of decades, which means that they were able to poke fun at Elvis, then the Beatles, and then punk music in the late 70s and all this shit. And there was lots of funny cameos like Jack White and Ghostface Killer, which, it seems like they love to do in comedies in this era. They just pump them full of cameos for no reason. But it's always fun. But yeah, this was just a funny watch. It was actually kind of touching at the end. I actually felt for Dewey Cox at the end. You know, so I liked this one. I'm giving it a 4. I'd recommend this for just a fun comedy and a unique genre parody movie. Yeah, I would recommend this one. All right, Tim Burton's 2005 Charlie and the Chocolate Factory remake, remaster, re whatever. I'd always thought that the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was the better film, but not really by that much. This one definitely has a better soundtrack in my opinion, and I really like Deep Roy as the Oompa Loompas as opposed to the 70s original. And, this one's a little more digestible and a bit more modern, but Johnny Depp kind of fucking sucks in this as Willy Wonka. Like, Gene Wilder's the GOAT. Gene Wilder's the OG. I don't really like Johnny Depp in this one, which is a bit of a shame because he has a lot of screen time, even more than Gene Wilder did in the original. Christopher Lee is sick as his dad. He's probably like him and Deep Roy are carrying in this. The main kid is a bit too perfect, when he's like, "It's my chocolate and I'll share it with my poor family because I'm so good." And it's like, oh yeah, I guess, but it's kind of just over the top how good this kid was. It was like the perfect kid. Um, it was interesting to see how they modernized things like Mike TV, plays Halo or whatever the fuck, and Augustus Gloop is funny. So all the other kids were pretty funny. I really liked them, and this felt a bit more like straight to the point compared to the original. But it's less scary than the original, which sucks because you hear Tim Burton's doing a remake, you're like, oh, it's gonna have skulls in it. It's gonna be all weird. It's gonna have scary trees, but it didn't really, which is a bit of a shame. Like the original is scarier, you know. So that's a bit disappointing. But I've seen this a lot when I was a kid. I'm more nostalgic for this than the original, and there's a lot of funny moments. So yeah, I liked this. I'd give it a 3.5, and I would say that the original is the superior one, but only by a little bit. All right. After Willy Wonka, I took a bit of a tonal shift into uh, Shinya Tsukamoto's 1989 film Tetsuo the Iron Man. Um, this one was really weird. It's shot in super grainy, 16 millimeter, black and white. So it looks really good a lot of the time, but it was just a bit too weird. It's about this guy who's, I guess, like got a fetish for metal, and there's lots of just over the top phallic imagery, like, and I was starting to fall asleep, and I wasn't that into it, and it was just a bit too fucking weird and dumb and amateurish, you know. And it was clear that this movie was trying to be a Razorhead, but just didn't have the skill. This felt a bit amateurish, which, you could say adds to the charm, and it's like a kind of silly, like, Japanese horror movie from the late 80s. But a lot of the shots, I was just like, something about this feels like it's a YouTube video. Like going back to Dewey Cox, it was like I was watching Smosh again, which, no, not a good thing. I don't have that much to say about this because I was falling asleep. Maybe if I watch it again, I'll like it a lot more. I do want to check out this director's other movies, but I couldn't get into this one. I was expecting greatness, but it didn't come through. It didn't clutch. But if this is your sort of thing, you'd definitely check it out. But for me, I'm feeling a strong 2.5 out of 5. Whatever. All right. Whiplash by Damien Chazelle. This was one of those movies where you're like, how the fuck have I not seen this already? when this came out, everybody was frothing over it, and it's one of those movies that everybody loves, and I'm glad to say that I do too now. I'm glad I finally got around to watching it. This film feels really really focused, except for the failed romantic subplot. There's a lot of moments where J.K. Simmons is just fully scary, and the moments where it's just giving you a headache because of the editing, or maybe the sound design is just really gets in your head, and you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna vomit and collapse and faint from just watching this movie, just watching this guy go ham on the drum kit. So I really like this. This was a unique idea. It's like it's it's crazy. The soundtrack is obviously awesome with all this virtuosic jazz music. J.K. Simmons goes fucking ham. I love J.K. Simmons. He's so underrated. Um, yeah, yeah, 4 stars. Another one that I'd been wanting to watch for a while was Super Mario Bros. From 1993. This was really weird. It seems like the Mario universe wasn't, developed enough for them to make a movie out of it. It doesn't really have that much to do with Mario. It takes probably like an hour for them to actually get into the, red and green suits. I think the Mario universe has potential for a movie. I think Illumination might be doing an animated one, but it didn't have any of the fun or like wackiness of the games. It was almost like a serious movie, which is just fucking weird. They like go into another dimension, and it's like Blade Runner mixed with Mad Max, and it's fucking crazy. Dennis Hopper from like Apocalypse Now and Blue Velvet is in this as Bowser, and he's like really scary. Princess Daisy is vegetarian, which is sick. I don't know why they did Princess Daisy instead of Princess Peach. There was like political overtones to this one, with Bowser being like this dictator. There was a few moments that were actually really like hardcore. It was fucking weird. I'd recommend this just based on the weirdness, especially if you're into Nintendo or Mario, like I am. One of the best things about this movie was Luigi being the same actor as Sid from Ice Age. Which just made it funny. He's got such a weird fucking voice. But this movie just should have been maybe 20 minutes shorter. Would have been a lot better. You get to a certain point in this movie where you're like, all right, I get the gist. But in the end, I was happy to finally say that I've watched this. This has been on my radar for a long time, and this was a fun one. Like were a lot of funny moments and surprising things to see in this movie. I'd give it 3 stars. It's definitely far from a good movie. All right, straight after Mario, I put on The Five Bloods, which came out this year and is directed by Spike Lee. It was interesting to see, a sort of a comment on the aftermath, decades later after the Vietnam War, especially from this black perspective. But I don't know what else. I don't know what. I'm not sure what else to say about this one. There were a lot of tense moments, a few fun moments, and I don't know. I don't really remember this one. I don't really remember watching this, which might not be a good sign, but I remember liking it. I just don't know what to say. I would give this one 4 stars. I don't think it's as good as Do the Right Thing. I think that Do the Right Thing is never going to be topped by Spike Lee. Cheaper by the Dozen 2 from 2005. When I was a kid, I had this one on DVD, but not the first one. So I watched this one way more than I ever watched the first one. And I'd probably say that this one's a bit better simply because of Eugene Levy. He's pretty funny in this. I think with 12 kids, there's enough dynamics that they didn't need to change the setting up so much and introduce this entire second family. But I'm glad that they did because it makes it a bit more fun. Like, I didn't think it was absolutely imperative, but I'm glad that it did happen. Um, yeah, Eugene Levy's probably the best thing about this. It's sick that they go to see Ice Age, even though it came out like 3 or 4 years before this movie did. Um, but other than that, it's a pretty generic family comedy sort of thing. There's not that many funny jokes. It's just a bit weird. It's not that good. I don't fucking know. It's cheaper by the dozen too. 1.5 stars. 1998's Joe Dante movie Small Soldiers. Um, it's clear that this movie is trying really fucking hard to be like an edgy version of Toy Story, which is about as dumb as it sounds. Um, you might know Joe Dante as the director of Gremlins and probably something else that I'm forgetting. But yeah, it's like these G.I. Joe rip-off characters, and they make jokes about like World War Two, and they do like blow shit up, and it kind of can't decide. Similarly to Gremlins, like it can't decide who its target audience is. Like it's almost too dumb to be an actual horror movie and too scary to be for kids. Which, it's kind of interesting when movies kind of mess up that tone a little bit and play around with that, but it also can be really annoying, and I'd say that this just was closer to the obnoxious side of the spectrum. It's sick that Kirsten Dunst, David Cross, Troy McClure, rest in peace, and Dennis Leary are in this. But I fell asleep. I ended up falling asleep. Maybe the last 25 minutes that I missed were really awesome, but I doubt it. This one had too much content with this main character. They tried to flesh him out by giving him Kirsten Dunst's love interest, but it was just, really boring, really just generic 90s suburban, boring, fucking, dumb. Didn't like it. Worse than the Gremlins. I really wanted to watch this when I was a kid, and I'm glad I didn't because it probably would have ruined my brain. But you know, I wouldn't recommend this. 2.5 stars. Best bit is the cute cat and Dennis Leary. All right, Francis Ford Coppola's 1979 Vietnam War epic Apocalypse Now. You guys all know this one. This was my first watch, surprisingly. I've been meaning to watch this since I was probably 13, and I wish that I'd watched it at that age. At that age, I was starting to watch movies like Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs and Goodfellas and Taxi Driver and whatever the fuck else, and Full Metal Jacket. But if I'd watched it when I was 13, this would probably be one of my favorite movies. This would have blown my mind. But, at this stage in my life, I feel like I've already seen everything that this movie has to offer in other movies. I've already seen the Vietnam War in Platoon and Full Metal Jacket, which I think are secretly better than this, especially Full Metal Jacket. And I've already seen Marlon Brando going ham in The Godfather Part 1. I've already seen this sort of shit. So I was a bit underwhelmed by this, which sucks because it is good. I really liked the crossfades. That was my favorite bit. Was just the every shot just being a crossfade for seemingly no reason made it feel kind of hallucinatory, which I liked. I did like is it Martin Sheen? I think I liked him in this. And it was clear why this movie is so famous and why it would be somebody's favorite movie ever. But just watch Full Metal Jacket. Like that's a lot better than this in my opinion. Um yeah, I don't know. The soundtrack was cool. There's a lot of good moments. Around the ending, I was like, okay, this is pretty badass. Like this is pretty intense. But like, really, is this what I was missing? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'll look more into the history and the background of this. But and I'm gonna watch this again soon. But I don't know. Like, it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, but it was still good. I would give this a really strong four. I was a bit underwhelmed. Right, National Treasure 1, directed by some random in 2004 and starring Nick Cage. Um, this was a pretty good Disney adventure movie. It's really awesome that actually steals the Declaration of Independence. Like that kind of elevates it to this almost self-aware, fun level, and separates it from the inevitable Indiana Jones comparison that it could never live up to. Like this, obviously, is nowhere near Indiana Jones level. But this was a fun watch. Nick Cage is a weird casting choice, but is pretty funny. Like, I feel like nobody would really care if it wasn't him in this. Um, Harvey Keitel from whatever shows up in this as an FBI agent, and he's really, he's one of the highlights for sure. Um, but you've seen this sort of thing before, and it's fun. There are a lot of actually funny jokes, but there's also a lot of stupid jokes. The romance subplot feels really stupid and a bit forced and unnecessary, like they always do. But that's not really a big deal. Um, yeah, this is yeah the word I'd use to describe this is fun. I would recommend this if you need just some light entertainment, or if you like action adventure movies. I'd give this one a solid 3.5. Okay, next up, we had Freeway, which is 1996, directed by Matthew Bright and starring Reese Witherspoon and Kiefer Sutherland, which are both awesome. This movie was a really, really harsh retelling of Little Red Riding Hood, and this was a massive tonal shift from National Treasure. This was at times difficult to watch. It's pretty harsh. Um, but it's clear that they're not trying to glorify or even trivialize any of the really awful things that are being mentioned or being depicted in this, which is a relief. But it's just it's kind of some bits are meant to be messed up and other bits are meant to be funny, but it's this sort of strain of dark comedy isn't really my style. It's not really something that I like. So there were parts that were difficult for me to watch, but that might not go for everyone. This movie, in its uncut edit, is banned in my country. So there's maybe 10 minutes that are cut out, but I didn't really notice. There was no scene where I was like, okay, this is why. But yeah, so obviously I watched the cut version, and the main highlights are Kiefer Sutherland and Reese Witherspoon go ham in this, which is awesome. Yeah, this is like the best Reese Witherspoon performance. She's so perfect in this. But I really couldn't get past some of the harshness of this, even though there were a lot of scenes that I really did like, and it was clear which bits were trying to be funny, but it just didn't do it for me personally. I would struggle to recommend this just because, like I said, it is there is some messed up parts. I would give this a 3.5. I was happy that I watched it, but it was just went a bit too far for my liking. All right, Smiley Face from 2007. Um, Stoner comedies do tend to be really fucking shit. I hate Ted. Even Half Baked, I love Dave Chappelle, but that movie just sucks. It's just they're so reliant on the fact that characters are smoking weed and they think it's so funny. But I'm glad to say that when this movie breaks away from that, it is really funny. Anna Faris is really, really likable as the protagonist. She's a really good lead. Actually feels really developed and three-dimensional as a character in this stoner comedy. I saw a review on Letterboxd that compared this to Uncut Gems, and I think that it's actually true. Like, this movie is really stressful. Some of the jokes that were more visual based were one of the highlights of this film. You know, they fit with this genre and they were really engaging, like compared to just dialogue based stupid jokes. Um, the scary lady from Glee shows up and she's pretty good. Joey Diaz shows up. You know, this was a fun watch. You know, it's nothing life changing, but it's probably like the best of its genre, considering how shit of a genre this is. This is like the worst genre ever of comedy, in my opinion. Even worse than spy parody movies. I'll give this 3.5, you know. If this sounds like your thing, definitely check it out. Alright, Martin Scorsese's 1990 movie Goodfellas. Um, every now and again, you just gotta check out an old favorite. I've seen this I've seen this many times, but it's something about the editing from Thelma Schumacher and the dialogue and the soundtrack and the direction from Scorsese is just so sick and so satisfying to watch. Um, it's hard not to compare this to something like The Godfather, considering they're probably the two best gangster crime movies, but they're completely different in their approach. This feels way snappier. All the scenes are so efficient with their information. You know, they really followed the show don't tell rule, which I think really elevates this movie. I think it's a perfect length. People think that this is like a 2.5 hour movie, but I think that it's only 2 hours. But it's so dense and there's so much going on that it feels a bit longer. Um, the cast is good. Joey Pesci is such a legendary actor, along with De Niro, and the dialogue I liked because it made it feel more voyeuristic and like you were getting a glimpse into this kind of weird, strange world of organized crime that I feel like a lot of us have this innate curiosity in. I definitely do. I love this genre. You know, you guys all know this. This is a classic for a reason. I would give this, a solid 4 or even a 4.5. I would say that Casino is the better movie though. Alright, Ghost World from 2001, starring Thora Birch from American Beauty and Scarlett Johansson from Home Alone 3. Um, I wasn't a fan of this one. I haven't read the comics that it's based on, and I didn't like the cynical sort of humor to this one. Um, this this cynicism was popular in media in the late 90s with things like Daria, but the difference is with Daria, you got actual really eloquent and thought-provoking comments on things like censorship, um, oppression, all sorts of different shit that was actually happening. And then this just feels like cynicism because they think it's funny. And the two main characters are shit people. They straight up harass this guy who's just trying to do his job, and then they complain at their jobs about shit customers. And I'm not sure if that's supposed to be the whole point, if you're not meant to like these two characters, but they're actually just bad people to the point where it was difficult to watch at points. I turned this off around the hour mark with half an hour left to go. It was just not funny. It was not interesting. It was so boring. I didn't care about any of the characters. It was just dumb, not funny. Didn't laugh. Fuck off this movie. I didn't like it. 4 stars. Don't watch this. Fuck this movie. The Holy Mountain from 1973. I'm not even sure what to say about this one. It's interesting to see a movie that fits so well with like the psychedelic movement that was happening in music and art in general. Um, the director really was part of this movement. The entire cast was on psilocybin in one of the scenes, which I think raises the authenticity and makes it kind of fucking crazy as well. There's a lot of weird scenes. There's a few scary scenes. There's a lot of awesome costumes and sets. So even just for the visuals, this film is worth your time, I'd say. And there's a lot of interesting comments on consumerism and war and the media and mass production and all this shit that still feels relevant. But even if the critique is pretty blatant and maybe a bit surface level, but it's interesting to see something from 1973 that still rings true for the out the current day. Um, I'm hyped to check out some of this guy's earlier films. It was interesting to see something like this that actually had a pretty big budget. I think some of the Beatles put money towards this, which makes sense. Um, but they still took this, like low budget, artistic sort of philosophy, this pre Star Wars film philosophy that I liked. As far as enjoyment goes, I'd give this one a 5 stars. It was really satisfying to see something again that felt so in line with this psychedelic aesthetic. Um, this director seems really skilled. The less you know about this movie is probably better, but it was just sick. It was just a unique watch. It's not too crazy, but it's in this like perfect level of weirdness. So yeah, I'd recommend this one for sure. Alright, straight after Holy Mountain, it was time for The Road to El Dorado from the year 2000. A lot of critics really hated this movie when it came out apparently, but it's definitely got its fans nowadays. Um, it's not the best DreamWorks movie. It's not as good as Madagascar 2 or Kung Fu Panda 1, but I still really liked this one. It was really funny and entertaining and had some really impressive animation, I'd say. I'm not sure if I'd seen this one as a kid. I think I'd seen bits and pieces, but that doesn't matter. It was still good, but it's not as good as its Disney counterpart, Emperor's New Groove, in my opinion. I'd say that's the more solid and funny movie. But even so, this was a fun watch. The dynamic between the new main characters was really entertaining. Rosie Perez's character is really funny, even if she does feel a little bit out of place. Um, you know, this was a good one. I don't have any other notes, but this is a 4 star movie. I love this sort of era of 2D animation when it was starting to be overshadowed by its 3D counterpart. But yeah, go watch this one again if you've seen it when you're a kid. Phineas and Ferb Star Wars Special from 2014. Um, I don't know. I don't know. This one was only an hour long special, so it wasn't really like it was a full length or anything that would have been pretty messed up. But this one doesn't feel as funny as like a good Phineas and Ferb episode would be. It feels like they kind of underutilized the Star Wars property, and it's not like the Family Guy Star Wars crossover where Peter Griffin is Luke Skywalker and fucking Joe Swanson is R2D2 or whatever. It's like Dr. Doofenshmirtz wants to be Darth Vader, and there's also Darth Vader, the real version, actually exists, which it was just stupid. Like, just make them the actual characters. The songs in this weren't as good as some of the OG Phineas and Ferb tracks, I'd say. I'm not like a proper Phineas and Ferb fan, but I do remember it. I think it's a good show, for sure. But no, no, didn't do it for me. Wasn't that funny? Was really boring. felt longer than it was, even though it was only like 50 minutes. Had potential. This crossover could have been awesome. And I think more people should watch this just because of how random of a crossover it is. But I'd give this a 1 star. I was really just bored by this. Wasn't that funny, except for a few jokes. Ugh, no. Better than Ghost World, but still a bit shit. 1 star. After that, I watched Diver Wimpy Kid 4, The Long Haul. The one with all the recasted actors. Um, I've got a lot of thoughts on this one. It's really sad that this movie exists. I think they completely lost the magic of the first three movies, particularly number two, Roderick Rules, I think, is a really great movie, but this just sucks. I don't know why they picked this book to base it off. This is the ninth book, even though I think that they were up to the fifth book for the actual, like, the proper movies. Um, this, as you can probably guess by the title, this is a road trip movie which, no matter who you are, you've seen a million fucking times. They make all the same stupid road trip movie jokes about gross hotel rooms and pissing in a bottle, like in Dumb and Dumber. They make the exact same joke from Dumb and Dumber that wasn't funny in Dumb and Dumber, where Greg Heffley is pissing in a bottle and the bottle's getting full and he can't stop, and it's fucking gross watching this little kid piss in a bottle, and he's like, "Oh, I'm pissing in a bottle, but I can't stop." And it's fucking gross. There's a lot of gross out humor in this. There's cockroaches in the bathroom, in the hotel room. Roderick straight up vomits in this dude's mouth. It's fucking yuck. Like, why? Like that. I guess it was present in the comics a little bit with like the cheese touch and that sort of shit. But like, really, do we really need to go that far with it? There's no iconic jokes in this. There's nothing even close to Rowley sitting on the tinfoil ball, or Fregley putting his booger on the note, or any. There's no memorable jokes in this. Rowley is in it for 3 minutes and he only says Zooey Mama once. There's no Fregley or anything. There's no funny teachers. And it just feels so claustrophobic. Like, half of this movie is just them making stupid jokes in the car. Roderick is so dumb. They made him just a fucking idiot character. And they completely lost this dynamic where he's an asshole, but, you can tell that Greg looks up to him, and that they love each other, and that they're brothers. But he's just fucking annoying in this. This movie sucks. Obviously, all the recasts are way worse. They're just phoning it in. Nobody cares about this movie. You can tell. The best bit is Greg has got a foam diamond sword from Minecraft on his shelf. That was my favorite bit. And there was a couple of good jokes I remember, but I can't even recall what they were like. And they obviously weren't as good as the cheese touch or anything like that. There's no good side characters. There's just fucking nothing to this movie. It's every shit road trip family comedy that you've seen, but it's just so fucking shit. It's so dumb. It's extremely obvious that at the end of this movie they're like, "Oh fuck, we didn't have any character development or anything. Greg's still just a little dickhead the whole time." And then so they just squirt out this dumb narration where he's like, "You know what? Even if my family gets on my nerves sometimes, they're still my family and I love them." It's like, yeah, that's a good message, but where was that in the movie? Like, that's not even relevant here. In the three originals, Greg becomes less of an asshole. He learns to get along with Roderick. He learns to treat Rowley like a human being. And in number three, he bonds with his father. But there's none of that here. It's just fucking a series of gross things happening and stupid jokes. Even the thumbnail on Letterboxd is just Greg with bird shit on his face. Like, that tells you everything you need to know about this movie. I would obviously not recommend this. Like, this is fucking was just a waste of time. I'm giving this 1 star out of 5. It's really sad to think that this is the same guy who directed, the three great originals. You know, this was heartbreaking to watch. We're Back, A Dinosaur Story from 1993. This is by far the scariest animated movie I've seen in ages. If you saw this when you were a kid, it would give you fucking nightmares. It was so confusing, and I watched it at midnight and was just trying to piece together what was happening from the visuals, like when you're a kid and you don't really listen to the dialogue. And I think that's probably like ideal reception context. This was almost like the same level of just fucking hallucination as Apocalypse Now or The Holy Mountain. Like this was fucking crazy. I don't even know what to say about this. I have no idea what was happening in the plot. Some of the voice acting is good. Critics hate this movie, and probably nobody really remembers it that much. But this was actually kind of fucking cool. I but it was clear that it was kind of a shit movie, so I would give it a 4 even though I really did like it. Maybe a 3 actually. You know what? Yeah, I'm giving this a 3. I did like this, but I'm never going to watch it again. And it was just weird. Like, I've got nothing else to say. It was just fucking crazy. But I was happy to close out the month with this one. After all that, my favorite for the month was probably Holy Mountain. I really liked Goodfellas and El Dorado, and my least favorite was The Over Wimpy Kid 4. But yeah, thanks for watching, and let me know if you disagree and you think I'm stupid.